This is going to be one of 3 quick videos I post for today. I actually remembered that I wanted to do one more thing in Chapter 3. I want to talk a little bit more about modified box plots than we did in class. So we're going to go right back to that data that we had in our last video. This is the data about the brake and muffler shop, and these are your repair values. So remember, the units on these are in dollars. And what I want you to do is I want you to enter this into your list 1 in your calculator. So go ahead, go to Stat, Edit in your calculator, and go ahead and clean out whatever list you got there, and then enter this data into your list. All right, so press pause and get that done. Once you have the data entered in your list, what I want you to do now is to go ahead and sort of just follow along with me here. You're going to go to second y equals in your calculator. Second y equals, that's the top left hand corner of the calculator, and we're going to choose plot 1. So you're going to go ahead and enter, press enter or press 1, and what we want to do is we want to set your calculator up like mine is. I don't know if you could see this, but I got plot 1's turned on, so the on is bolded. Then you arrow down into this area here and keep hitting to the right until you get to this one right here. This is your modified box plot. The next one is not modified. We never ever use this one. So you can just sort of delete that out of your memory forever. This is the one we want to choose. Then notice my X list is list 1. That's where my data is. The frequency for my data counts once for each time it's listed. And these marks down here are your choice. It doesn't really matter which one. It's a little graphic choice. Then the next thing I want you to do after that is go to Stat, Calc, one variable stats on L1, and go ahead, generate your 5-number summary. Remember, once you hit Stat, Calc, one variable stats and on L1 you hit enter, the first thing that comes up is X bar, but there's a little arrow on the bottom left hand of the screen that says to go down. So if you arrow all the way down, you should be able to record your min, Q1, so on and so forth. And you should have the same values as I do. 56 is the minimum, 163 is quartile 1, 220 is the median, 302 is quartile 3, and 422 is your max. So you want to make sure that your calculator's all good to go, and you have your 5-number summary, and you'll be ready to calculate and hand draw a modified box plot with me in just 2 minutes. So what are modified box plots? Modified box plots are a graphical display of quantitative data, just like a histogram is. A display of quantitative data. Modified box plots are just another version. So what's so cool about them, if there is anything cool about a box plot? Well, this is my Q1, this is my Q3, and this is the box. A modified box plot, of course, always has a box in it. Go figure. This box always contains the central 50% of the data. 25% of the data will lie to the upper end of the box, and 25% of the data will lie to the lower end of the box. All right. The box itself is home to what we refer to as the IQR, the interquartile range. That's the distance between Q3 to Q1. So when we go to construct a modified box plot for our muffler data, our Q3 minus Q1, right, that's equal to our IQR. If you go ahead and calculate that, that's 302 minus 163, or $139. Right, that's your IQR for the muffler data, 139. Go ahead and just double check that. Q3 minus Q1, you should get 139. The next thing we'd like to know is what's 1.5 times IQR. And this is a critical component of every construction of a modified box plot by hand. So we're going to multiply 1.5 times this value here. 1.5 times 139 is going to get us 208.5. I'm just going to put a 0 after that because this is in dollars. What is that? That's the distance that I'm going to go in this direction and in this direction from my Q3 and Q1 respectively. I will be willing to go $208 in each direction until I think a value that's on either side of that, either over here or over here, are weird, or what we would refer to as an outlier. Right? So outliers are there and there. Anything that goes past that mark, so 208.50 is going to be our sort of, fence as they refer to it in the book, our upper fence and our lower fence. Lower fence being here, upper fence being here. So let's continue on. As we construct a box plot by hand, what we wanted to do, or what I've done here, is I've just drawn out a number line. And I know that my values go from like 56 on down to somewhere in the 400s. I believe it was like 422. So all I've done is just set up a number line here to accommodate all of those possible values. Now what I want to do is I want to drop in my Q1 and my Q3. And I want to construct that box. My Q1 was at 163, so that's just past the 150 mark. And then my Q3 was at 302, so right here. So there's my box. Now that I have my box, what I want to do is I want to sort of mark out or stake out my upper and lower fences, that cutoff value for where things begin to be an outlier. Now, as you notice, for my upper fence, Q3 plus that 1.5 times IQR, so $302 was my quartile 3. When I add the 208.50 to that, I get a value of $510.50. I mean, that's way over here. And we know that the highest value that I have for repairs was $422. So my upper value, or my max value, is $422, and that maximum didn't go beyond the upper fence, so my maximum value is not an outlier. For the lower fence, it's in the negative dollars, so it's over here. It's not an actual possibility, so I'm just going to ignore it. So what are we saying? We're saying that with respect to the data that we've gathered, none of the repair bills are that outrageous within the set itself to consider themselves really weird, outrageously either inexpensive or outrageously really expensive repairs. So all we want to do now is just mark out our max, now that I know it's not a weirdo. So this was my 450 range, 422, let's just say it's right about there. My minimum was $56. So I'm just going to stake out the $56 range, which is right there, and then I'm just going to extend the line down and extend the line up, and that's it. And so what we're looking at here is back again to, how does this look? Well, my median value for a second, let's put that into the box, the last piece of the construction. The median was 220. So that's right around here. That's pretty centrally located in the box. It's just a little bit off to the left side, which means our central 50% is just a little skewed to the right. If you remember, the histogram was a little skewed to the right. And our tails here are fairly, they're the same length. So that means that the distance from the smallest value to the median and our largest value to the median, they're pretty much the same distance, which sort of points to more symmetry than non-symmetry. And again, the distance from the max to the median would be a little bit more. And so, hence that slight skew to the right. So this is it. So I want to give you one more piece, food for thought here. Let's just say for ha-has that the upper fence was at $405 instead of the way that it had worked out. Well, we had one value. The maximum was $422. The next value down below the max happened to be $400. That was the second highest repair cost. So the box still would have been very similar, or actually identical. It still would have went from the 160 mark, right, to the 302 mark. That still would have been my box, but what would have happened differently now is on the low end, I still would have went all the way down to the 56 because there is no outlier. But now I'm not willing, that 422 mark, let's just say he's at little points like just below, the 450 there. Say, let's call that 422. I know I'm a little off scale here. That's the 422 mark. Because it's beyond the upper fence, I just mark it as a dot. What about the line now, the tail? How far am I willing to extend the tail? I'm willing to extend the tail to the highest value that didn't go beyond the upper fence. So if my upper fence was 405, the next lowest value was 400. That's as far as I draw the tail to. Then any other values that are in the list, no matter how many there are, they just get marked by dots beyond the upper fence and or the lower fence if they existed. Now again, this one had no outliers, so I just extended my tails to the min and the max, but that's not always the case. That's it for modified box plots.